Tracey Crouch MP talks to the Speaker of the House of Commons about politics, her passion for sport and surviving breast cancer.
What is behind Tracey Crouch? We all see this happy, fun-loving person, genuine, good politician, and a very popular politician. What made you decide to become an MP?
I did some work experience with my then MP, Michael Howard. So I grew up in Folkestone Hythe. I was at school. Michael came to my school and did a speech about what it's like to be an MP. I wrote to him afterwards. He said, come and do some work experience with me. He was Home Secretary at the time. So I came up here and spent a week in an office, actually just behind the chamber, the Home Secretary's office. I really loved how engaged he was with constituency issues. And it was that kind of inspired me into politics. Yes, this was an exciting place, and as a 17-year-old, it was, strange and thrilling all at the same time. But what really sort of kind of got my interest was what he was doing back at home and how he was helping people and how he was supporting people.
That was the first footing. You got a real taste for politics. And then university, you went to Hoyle. Most of your peers were actually out knocking on doors to get Tony Blair elected in 1997, except one person, Tracey Crouch, no less.
Actually, no, I was here. So I started working here in 1996. I'd already graduated. I'm a little bit older than you think I am.
A lot older than I thought you were.
I actually, I became interested in the Conservative Party under John Major, and I was actually quite taken by what John Major stood for, where he'd come from. His background felt very similar to my background. He was from a single parent family. He had a relatively low income family. He'd gone to grammar school, and grammar school had helped him in terms of, wanting to achieve, rise up and achieve things. And I'm sat in grammar school doing my A-level politics, learning about John Major as he became Prime Minister and everything else. And it really sung to me. And I'm very much what I think of as a one nation Conservative, and he believed in meritocracy and so on. So actually, with the combination of John Major being so different to what Margaret Thatcher had stood for, and then you've got a good local MP in terms of Michael Howard, going into university, I sort of kind of thrived on it, really.
I know you did.
Yeah, and I read law at university, and quite often it would be in a law lecture, and one of the lecturers would stand up and say, well, Miss Crouch, what does the Home Secretary think of this? And I'd be the only Conservative in a room of like 200 people, certainly out Conservatives anyway. And I remember being chased out at the campus of Hull because some Socialist Worker Party were sort of burning an effigy or something of John Major, and I told them that they were ridiculously childish. And I ran so fast, and I ended up hiding in the lecture room of one of our Bolshevik lecturers who hated the Socialist Worker Party as much as everybody else. So, it was a good time, and if anything, actually being at a left-wing university, I think helped cemented, my own Conservative principles.
What about the other part of Tracey Crouch, the sport? The person behind the sport. You've some strange choice of football team, even worse choice of rugby league, but do us introduce us. Why did you get into sport?
Well, see, it's really interesting because actually my family have no interest in either politics or sports. So how I ended up being an interest in both, I have no idea. I grew up on an estate that was full of boys. There was only myself and my sister as the girls. And basically, if you wanted to go out and play, you had to play sport. Yeah. You could play sport on the street. A car would come by, you just shout car, the ball stops, and then, the car goes by, and then you carry on playing. So, a bit like David Beckham, although without the talent.
Bend it like Crouch.
I basically grew up playing football on the streets, I can play every single sport because we played every single sport.
How important is exercise to you?
So I genuinely think that sport and exercise is the answer to everything. Show me a problem that cannot be solved by sport and exercise. And actually, you see it in policy, but it doesn't quite necessarily get the same level of attention as other things. We've got schemes in the Home Office, in the Ministry of Justice, in the Department for Education, in Health, that are trying to tackle issues using sport and exercise. So I often think that actually we don't appreciate and value as much as we could or we should the importance of sport and exercise as part of the nation's well-being. You know, whether it's teenage girls through to older adults to engage in exercise, you know, it doesn't need to be in that team competitiveness. It's one of the wonderful things, for example, about parkrun. You know, it's not about competition, it's about movement. I tried to bring some of that into the role of sports minister and published the sports strategy, which focused a lot on physical health, which wasn't just about competitive team sports. But for me, when David Cameron rang me up to offer me the job, it was the only job in government that I would have taken. And it's still the only job in government I would take on the basis that I don't want to be a minister for the sake of it. You know, I want to do something in a role.
Does this mean you're coming back?
No, it does not mean I'm coming back. I'm doing the football review at the moment, and for me that is a primary focus. And it has reminded me that it is really quite challenging actually to balance having a ministerial role with the role of being an MP. This isn't a ministerial role, but actually the amount of pressure, work and time and you know and everything else. You know, it is about balancing all that.
Suddenly, you then became ill. 12 months ago, I think, just over, the bad news came out that you got breast cancer. That was a shock, obviously, for you and your family, but all your friends as well. How did you deal with that?
In my mind, wrongly, in my mind, I just always had this vision that sort of kind of breast cancer was something that happened in older age. You know, for me, it was like, I'm too young for this. And then actually you start drilling down a bit and realising that because there are actually quite a few people now being diagnosed who are under 50 or under 45, and people are getting diagnosed much younger. And I think we have this misconception in our minds that if we're healthy and we're fit, it can't possibly happen to us, and therefore you don't check.
What was it you said? Check your bits and bobbins. You know, make sure you check yourself. And it was a reminder to people like this saying the secret is you've got to check early, get diagnosed, get the support, and you can get through it.
What I wanted to do was come out and say, you must check, because if somebody like me can, you know, be diagnosed with breast cancer, then so can you.
How do you deal with the chemo? The real effects of that must have been bad.
So I was actually really lucky in terms of the side effects of chemo. I'm not going to lie, there were days where I was, you know, not feeling great, but I wasn't particularly poorly. You know, my oncologist is a huge believer in exercise, and he had read some research somewhere or other, which said that if you exercise directly before chemotherapy, it reduces some of your side effects. So I used to walk to my chemo. It was a 50-minute walk, and so every chemo I would walk. I'd then have to, because we were obviously in COVID times, I'd then have to wait for 15 minutes for my body temperature to reduce before I could go in and before I could go in and actually be scanned into the hospital. But you know, as a consequence of that, I do think that I fared well from the side effects.
But your sister also decided to shave her head as well. I thought that, you know, this is solidarity of the Crouch family. This is sisters sticking together.
I mean, I love my sister so much, and you know, we've been thick as thieves since we were kids, and she's 3 years younger than me. And I often think it's actually harder for your loved ones in a diagnosis than it is for yourself. For me, you know, I'm getting all the attention, if you like, from the medical profession. I'm being supported by the nurses. I'm getting, you know, I can pick up the phone and ask anybody. Actually, your family and your friends are quite often the ones that are worrying about it all, more than I was. I mean, I wasn't particularly worried about anything. I was just doing as I was told, which in itself was slightly a bizarre, non-Crouchy thing to be doing. But yeah, no, she was great. And she grew her hair long, and then shaved it off and donated her hair to the Little Princess Trust, who make wigs for children who go through chemotherapy. And we found it both a really sort of kind of eye-opening experience. She's a teacher, and so a lot of children were pointing and staring at her. And she said, imagine if you were an 8-year-old girl and you were going through that at the same time. I found losing my hair quite liberating. I've had the same hairstyle since I was a teenager, and I probably would never have had the guts to change it. And all of a sudden, I had no choice. And, it was sort of quite an empowering moment.
Tracy, can I say, thanks for sharing that experience. It's fantastic to see you looking so well. You really are an inspiration to all. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Anytime.